they give us a master list of just nothing but addresses? I mean, they know every stop they make. They've got that listed.
So they have a computer in the truck when they stop, when they make a stop, and he told me every time he stops in my house, there's a line on his computer in the truck.
Yeah.
Because I missed the day one time and he went by, and then on his way back by, I stopped him and he said, well, I've already marked you, so I'll just go ahead and take it, but I've marked you as not being here this week. So they do have a list of active customers in the truck with them. Wherever they're getting that list from, that's what we need.
That was my impression at the very
Billing
least,
file.
they would provide us that. That list got names that are been long-time customers is not a legit list.
Well, I see some on here that I'm surprised they're not signed up. They never know.
I mean, I understand that the attorney made, because, you know, the information about the water meters and names and what all, but I cannot see a reason that they cannot furnish us a list of addresses.
I'm sure they can. We haven't asked for it. You know,
I know, what would that be for, so?
It give us an opportunity, I guess, to look at the list of people that,
See if there's some on there that aren't on here.
or that are, if there's some on that list
They're
that
not.
still show up on the open,
Yeah.
on our list.
That would get the ones that are customers.
Yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate list. I mean, we know that they're there. And I don't know, I just think that at the very minimum, that's.
I just trying to, I would think I'd be willing to see if we could work strictly in Carroll County rather than involving the city.
You would think that this whole thing would be as simple as taking their list of, of customers and merging it with the list of total possible customers and being able to identify, the ones that aren't signed up. But
The problem is, how old is the database that they're providing to you to merge in? How long, when was the last time it was updated?
that's part of the problem, but the bigger part of the problem is all of the spelling errors and different ways of spelling things, and they don't their database doesn't, and even HISA's database that we started with doesn't have the street number separated from the street address itself. So if you try to sort by street or something like that, it won't sort it. Or at least I'm not smart enough to know how to do that. If I started the original database, it'd give me all the ones first, and then all the twos first, and then all the threes second, and then all the threes third, regardless of whether that's 3 Woodsdale or 3 Appaloosa or 3 wherever. So this spreadsheet here that we're working with right now, I went in and physically separated the number of the address from the street itself so that I could sort it and filter it and everything else. So it's just not that easy to merge them because of how both parties have their database set up in the first place.
So on their list, you could always separate it by the street number and not the street itself, to show all the people that live on Holiday Island Drive.
You can in this database because I separated it out.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking at.
I moved the number into a different column so that I could sort by the name of the street.
Now, I understand that, but I still don't understand how so many people that we know have service, they're on the list that they're not serviced.
It could be that it's, set up differently and, you know, like instead of, in our database, the person's name may be, Harry Schwartz. And in the Carroll County Solid Waste, it could be E. Harry Schwartz or something like that, you know, that they just signed up with their name structured differently or something like that.
I see one on here, Beaver, the lady hadn't lived there in 2 or 3 years. The name, the resident address and the mailing address is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably might be several of those.
Dan,
FYI, our internet is coming and going, costs is up and down.
we've noticed.
Okay. So it's going to the pro shop down, the rec center down, so, okay.
Shocking. I would think we just, at least ought to ask them to give us a list of just the addresses and see what we do.
It'd be really ideal if their database had a stop number, and then you'd have something of consequence that you could match up. That'd be really ideal if they had that in their
Oh,
database.
Oh,
But you won't know
stop
till they'll see it.
number?
You know, stop number 1, stop number 2.
Oh,
They've got to have that because it's in the truck.
Exactly,
They have route sheets or route lists
sure.
that they work from.
I think there's 2 routes on Holiday Island.
But they've already updated it because I've got 3 neighbors just on my street that I know have signed up within the last 3 to 4 weeks. They're getting picked up already. So it's got to be a current sheet. They've got to have a current database of users.
That would be a good way to get the.
If we could get that sheet, that would be perfect.
The other concern I have is the non-residents. So apparently we have in the neighborhood 200 or more non-residents, or part-time residents, whatever you want to call them. And you sold bag tags for 15 or 20. So how the heck?
Well, that's where Aaron's idea comes in.
Well, he was saying, yeah, but that's another 150 to 200 or.
I've got a neighbor that's leaving. He's moving out November 1st. He's moving back to Florida, and he'll be returning in April, May, somewhere around that time frame. So he said he's gonna call Solid Waste, stop his account, and then he'll move back. And then when he moves back in May or whatever he comes back, he calls and says, "Okay, add me back to the list." So that's gonna cause there are gonna be a lot more of the snowbirds who are gonna be in and out like that. How are we gonna track those as well?
Well, that's one thing I did, Carroll County, had a, what did they call it? Some kind of like you said, where they went to Arizona for 6 months.
Part-timers.
No, that's not a part-timer.
Suspended service or?
Yeah, but they were going to charge them $6 a month or something. I don't know what that was. That's going to be hard to sell.
Yeah, he said they were just gonna allow him to stop service completely, close his account, and then when he came back in May, they would reopen his account.
But then we got a thing here that don't show that.
Right, that's what I'm saying, that's gonna be,
But if we got information from Carroll County Waste when they had people did that, then we could but how, you've got these intermittent people that come every other month or so for 3 days. And the majority of those people are not, for some reason, are not aware of what we're doing. And I think in a mailing, I thought we mailed something.
We did.
Time before. when
We did.
started, but
And most of the calls I'm getting now, the people are well aware of the ordinance. but they weren't gonna worry about it until they were coming back again. And when they get back here, then, when they get ready to come back, then they call and say, we're gonna be in town, we wanna buy bag tags. So, I don't believe that we're going to be able to contact everybody and say, we can't wait until, we're not willing to wait until you come back into town again, buy bag tags immediately or something like that.
I'm in favor of that.
What?
You need to get them on the list, you need to get them verified list and get them into the program, because if you sit around and wait for everybody to voluntarily come in, you're gonna be a long way.
Well,
I don't think it's fair to ask them to buy bag tags when they're not gonna be here for 6 months.
Why not? Then they
Just put them on a list as a bag tag customer.
Hmm?
Just put them on the list as a bag tag customer.
Well, that would get us partway there.
Why, I mean, why make them pay? It's not that much money to us. All you want is their name on a list.
You're gonna make the program viable or not. I mean, if you got 200 people out there, and 150 or 120 of them are gonna participate, the other 50 or 80 are, you're gonna drag them.
It's a sure way to irritate them. It's a sure way to irritate them.
What difference is it? I irritate them or they irritate me? I mean, the program's not, the ordinance was passed in April. And we started selling bag tags 2 months ago, 3 months ago. So how many people have voluntarily participated?
Also, how many of those part-timers, they may go off to Arizona for 6 months, they also may be renting out that unit. If they don't sign up one way or the other,
I would go along if we can get them to acknowledge that they are part-timers and register. And then so we can.
I have some next door neighbors who are part-timers and are here usually 4 weeks in the spring and 4 weeks in the fall. And because of health reasons, I don't know that they're even coming back. But I can sure tell you they would be really irritated to get a letter in the mail saying, you have to buy bag tags and I want the money right now. Now, they wouldn't be irritated if you sent them a letter saying, we are implementing this new program for trash, and when you arrive, come to our office and pick up your bag tags. But if you ask them for a check right now and they aren't here and they don't know exactly when they're coming back, they will be irritated.
I said I would go along if they would acknowledge and get registered in.
Yeah. And I can, as a neighbor, I can vouch for them that they are legitimate part-timers.
Because
they would have gotten the original.
Yes,
letter.
they should have, yeah. If it followed them between Wisconsin and Florida.
One letter already.
But I'm still seeing people dumping their trash in the Sunfest dumpster behind the building.
Those are the ones we have to get to.
And I know the residents because I know who they are.
Oh, then
well,
good.
I think they need a citation.
Well, we've got a significant number, and Rebecca Sherman just said, well, I heard that you could dump your refrigerator on the lawn and they'll come pick it up.
That's a once a year thing, I believe.
Well, it is, but that's the kind of crap that's proliferating on social media.
Oh, I get calls about it every single day. I'm getting calls from people saying that kind of stuff.
I mean, we've got people that are organizing to buy this,
Mm-hmm.
and
I hear from them every day.
If you go down there and look in the dumpster right now, I bet you don't find any tags.
That was one of the things that I expressed when I was like, they're not gonna use the bag tags, they're just gonna throw them in the dumpster. And it's a shame that that's gonna happen, but people are gonna do whatever's free, and that's free. Just like dumping it in the Sunfest dumpster or over in front of the Elks Club.
Mhm.
Those same kind of things. They're gonna find a way to dump it somewhere else.
That's why I thought making the living, but then they just wouldn't use them, so.
Well, we knew going in that we, had not having control of the billing for water, that we were going to have leverage problems.
Well,
But the part-timers, the part-timers are the least of our concern as far as, illegal dumping.
Well, if you know they're a full-time resident, you can cite them, right? If they aren't on the CCSW list, route list,
totally what these are.
you'll eventually cite them, and they'll have to pay a fine or go to court or something. The bag tag customers, that one's tricky, all right.
Very tricky.
Well, I mean, that was something that we did.
May not be
to
worth
make-
it to pursue, I don't know.
Make it easy for them.
Well,
And if they choose to ignore it, then we'll do something else.
Now, the VRBOs, are they on the bag tag program?
No, they're on the streamlining.
They,
Well,
they have to have a dumpster, from Carroll County Solid Waste.
Okay.
now if it's just an individual who has signed up their house exclusive, I mean, they aren't going through Ozark, they aren't going through Plumley, but they've just, I'm just an individual citizen, I initiated my own contract with VRBO, then maybe I should have some trash service or something.
Yeah,
Well, they probably
should.
take it to their own house.
One option that I thought would take a little time, is that go to the county assessor's website and see who is claiming homestead credit. Because, it has to be your primary residence.
If you live in
to
it.
claim the credit.
Yeah.
well, I think we have a pretty good list of people that haven't signed up. Yes, there are errors in the list, and those errors have to be reconciled. That's, probably 2% of the list. The rest of the list, we have the data we need to start. We could start knocking on doors tomorrow, or put if we have them printed, we could start putting door hangers on doors tomorrow.
Well, and when I went out doing petitions, knocking on doors was a pain in the butt, and about 50% of the time, nobody comes to the door.
I can assure you when somebody knocks on my door, I don't come to the door. So,
I do.
there was a property owners association in my old hometown up in Indiana. They had a very similar situation with the tags, that they were having an issue. And what happened was they were getting tags from the actual trash service, which would be Carroll County Solid Waste in this case. They were getting tags from them. They would put the tag on the bag, set it out at the curb. And when the trash came through on Thursday or Wednesday or whenever it was, if the bag had a tag on it, they'd stop, throw it back in the truck, and on they'd go. That customer wasn't even part of the whole show. They would just, and you would get X number of tags. And, if you had 27 bags of trash, then you'd have to buy extra tags. It took the onus off of the city and put it onto the trash service. And they tracked it by, we charge you $1, $2 per tag or whatever. And that way, if you're a part-timer, you don't have to worry about what happens from November until May when I'm gone, or what happens when I'm only here 4 weeks this week, this year, and 4 weeks, this part of the year, that kind of thing. You buy 5 tags, you can have 5 bags of trash. Boom, problem solved. That was the case with that property owners association, because they had a very similar situation where they had 2 forms of government. They had property owners, and then they had this city that they had, and they were both having trouble reconciling. So rather, they tried to hand that off and said, okay, Carroll County Solid Waste, you sell them a tag, you know, they can come down there and get 5 tags from you. That gives 5 bags of trash, that way the city doesn't have to worry about it anymore. That's just another thought, you know.
But that, as far as enforcement goes, that's really, there's no advantage to that over what we're doing. Who sells the tags doesn't really, doesn't give you any more or less enforcement capability.
Right.
It just takes the administrative problem away from the city and gives it to Carroll County Solid Waste.
Well,
Carroll County Solid Waste does sell bag tags.
and they did, and they sold some to people out here.
Yeah.
So they're already doing that.
There was one person here, a full-time resident, that was buying bag tags from Carroll County Solid Waste because, you know, he said he didn't fill up a garbage bag every week. So he, instead of signing up for weekly service, he just bought bag tags. And he put the bag at the end of the road and they pick it up.
Mine's every 2, I have trash every 2 weeks. I don't even have enough to fill up a can every week. So 2 weeks.
We do it every 2 weeks. But anyway, what have we resolved? We're gonna let Carroll County Solid Waste give us the updates. And somebody leaves, we're not gonna get it from Sid. And we'll try that. We're gonna try and purify this list a little bit more, and then we're gonna do a mailing.
That's, the next 2 action items are for people to let me know if there are people on this list, the storage list, that they know for sure are already Carroll County Solid Waste customers, so that I can get that reconciled with Carroll County.
Anything on anybody that has information.
And then, once we get, you know, we'll take a week to do that. And then I will put together another mailing for all the addresses that are left and see what kind of results we get from that. I'm anticipating we're not gonna get very much result from that.
Well, I mean, I think we give them a deadline and tell them that they will be issued a citation after if they don't.
I would see that we would mail them just a general letter first. And if it doesn't get resolved within a certain period of time, maybe go with certified mail and certified notice.
Yeah.
Give them a deadline.
I think 1 mail is enough.
They get it. You know, they go get it because they get the bills. Just a thought.
I mean, at some point in time, we're gonna have to put the hammer down.
I agree. I'd like to weed it out a little bit before we have to go
Well, I
about
would
doing it.
too, Aaron, I mean, there are people on that, the people who have raised the biggest fuss about it, if they ain't gonna do it, their names ain't on there that I've seen,
Oh, yeah, they are.
only one.
There's more than one.
Okay. But, I mean, we need to get it down to those people and deal with it.
I just got a call while we're sitting here from somebody asking about the trash service, so while we were sitting here, it's every day. But I'm doing all I can from my side, but I will do, if I need to go knock on doors, I think the door hangers, after the mailings, the door hangers will be the next thing.
That's a good point.
Give them a chance and then say, hey, this door hanger says, next up, I come to your door with a citation. That's it.
Well, I think there are a lot of people who think we're not serious.
That's what I mean. We need to,
They need to know that we are serious.
now, if we get it down to 50 or 60, I can knock on 50 or 60 doors. I can't knock on 200 doors.
Okay.
We can get you an automatic knocker, then.
Yeah, no,
We'll get you a new pack drill.
I like it.
Put a bumper on the end of it and then.
Okay.
And
I would, you know, see if we can wouldn't put a 30-day, I don't see any reason to give them 30 days to get signed up, or let us know what, if there's a problem.
You've got to give them a deadline, 30 days,
That's a
October
lot.
1st, whatever,
Why does
give
it
them a
take-
date, a
Why
time.
does it take 30 days to sign up, or let us know what the problem is?
But we will be back to your house on November 1st, by November 1st to, verify, et cetera. If you don't give them a deadline, they won't.
Well, I know, I just don't wanna give them too long.
Agreed.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
On this list that you just set out, what's the difference between columns F and G, which is the number and the street name, and then M, which has the number and street name in one column, but are they on this list because somehow they don't match? Because a lot of them have the same address and street number.
The
It's
column F and G are the physical location of the water meter. Column M and N are the building addresses. So, they should match up.
Yeah.
As filtered here, they should match up. But some of them, there were a few exceptions because of the errors that are in the database.
Well, I see some where they do match, except for the division between the two columns, but yet they're on the list.
They do match. That's why they're on the list, because the building location and the physical location of the water meter is the same.
Okay.
I don't see how they're getting buildings from some of these places. How would we ever,
That's why I had reconciled.
how they get anything from 14313 Cobble Court? How are they? I don't get many, you can get many checks back, I don't think. Yeah. Anyway.
Dan, can we go back to something you said a few minutes ago, that Carroll County isn't going to honor our contract? Our contract in area services, the contractor will notify the city of any address not contracting for service, such that the city can take appropriate action. That's on page 8. It also
Interesting.
says similar language on page 10 and page 11.
Yeah, that was put in there. That was in anticipation of the long-term maintenance of this, not the initial sign-up. So,
I think that's what we just agreed on, agreed on that.
Well, but you made the statement, the attorney's telling them they're not going to tell us anything. Is that not, did I hear it wrong?
Or that's not their
they're not going
responsibility.
they are not going to take the enforcement action.
No,
They're
but,
not going to get on the phone and call all these people.
but will they notify the city of the changes? Okay,
They already have.
okay, good, all right,
This list came from them.
okay, that's fine, okay.
So,
I don't understand.
It's just, we have to make sense.
Well, there's a lot of addresses. They're using that for, I said using that for billing and trouble.
I don't know that there's, I wouldn't say, there's maybe a dozen.
Well, I took it that this list was of people that didn't match.
Huh?
No. This list is the people, as filtered right here, this list is the people that have the physical location of the water meter was the same as their street address or their building address.
Anyway,
Okay, so for instance, in our case,
you don't want
we're
us,
not on the,
you don't want us to try and contact people and see if they are at this point. If we think they are.
If we know them, he wants us to do that, I think.
I don't know. I see people on here, I'm surprised that they're not, anyway.
I'm positive that there's people on this list that are currently, customers, and I would like to get them weeded out first. And the very first name on the list, which I'm not gonna say, but if the name on the list is under the wife's name, my guess is that their account with Carroll County Solid Waste is under the husband's name.
Bet you anything.
And that's why it shows up on the list here.
Need to sync it by address, not by name.
That's why, yeah. Once we get all that cleaned up, then after that.
Well, if we get this list from them, that by address only, then we get it out. Okay. Anybody else? I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This is gonna take some time to, I wish like heck that the city had the water department so that we could just put it on
I
the
don't want the
water
water
bill
department.
and be done with it. This is going to
Be
be.
a lot easier.
This is gonna take a lot of clerical work long-term to maintain.
Well,
Even after we get it straightened out.
okay.
Right, so we got our next steps defined. Aaron, is there anything else you wanted to add? Your
No, sir, I think I've said plenty.
your
So I can
official employee.
Now I can knock on people's door and not get shot.
Yeah.
No guarantee.
Haven't been able to come up with a badge yet, but,
You know, like a medal.
yeah, a real
I got you. I know where they're at.
everything, all of the companies that I looked at online, their templates already were set up for state logos and stuff like that, and, you know, more for law enforcement than for code enforcement, so.
Well, other cities obviously have a source if they're using those badges.
Yeah.
You just contact some other cities.
Green Forest got one. He's got one.
While we're on the subject, Aaron, as long as you're here, have you been able to make any progress on getting the door hangers printed?
I have found the printing templates, I have found the empty forms. The problem is getting the data, because it's made more for a merge from a spreadsheet or something of that sort. That's the biggest problem, and I don't have anything in a spreadsheet for that particular.
We can make you a spreadsheet.
I can make a spreadsheet and merge it in that way, which is not a problem, but the hangers, they are single copy, they're not carbon copies.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that I think we wanted to do, was have a carbon copy that's handwritten.
Yeah.
But if it's printed, you know, it will sync it, it will put a number on it and so forth, you know, that it will serialize it, but I don't, not 100% lined up with what we've got, what we need to do.
Green Forest, you said prints their own?
He created a database and a printout of his own. I can reach out to him and see what because he has the copies. I think he just had them printed up.
Yeah, he must get the blanks.
Yeah.
Printed somewhere.
I'll check with him.
Yeah. Because if we had that, at least initially, we could start filling them out manually. Long term, it would be nice to be able to have a template.
Yeah.
And be able to print it out.
Well, there are numerous software applications that are used by code enforcement people that has an online database, and it can print all that stuff out and do it all for you. They all have a monthly cost or an initial cost that's fairly high, more so than I think it's probably overkill for us. Because we're not really hardcore into it. I mean, it tracks your court, you can merge in the court paperwork and all that stuff, and I don't think we're at that point yet.
No,
And you're talking about $1,600, $1,800, $2,000 for an application like that, sometimes more.
yeah. But that, that's something that's another reason why we don't wanna just give everybody, 30 days, or we're gonna come with a citation, because there is no way that we're gonna dump, 100 court cases on the Eureka Springs District Court all for one day,
For a trash can.
for trash,
Yeah.
for trash pickup. This is gonna have to be done at some scalable, manageable pace.
Well, when we add in the enforcement of other things, nuisance, ordinance, those things, that's gonna be a.
Now, will Aaron be issuing citations?
I'm still a little foggy on that, and I asked Justin to give me some advice on that, because,
Well, the question pertains, I'm supposed to send in the information, the estimated wages for our employees for next year. And for Aaron, it makes a difference in classification if he issues citations or doesn't.
really,
Yeah,
If he issues citations, he's a police officer.
I'm a court officer. Yeah, it's not officially, it's a
But
city
you're in
officer.
that category
Yeah.
of enforcement.
when the county came back and said that the county deputies enforcing the city ordinances was a showstopper for them, and we had to modify the contract accordingly, then I went back and started doing more research. And I'm still trying to get clarification from Justin about this. If it's my understanding that if the ordinance being enforced just has civil penalties, then Aaron can issue the citation. Civil penalties meaning fines. If the citation has criminal penalties, then it has to be issued by a law enforcement officer.
Like it says, it's a misdemeanor offense in the language,
All of our ordinances say.
and some of them say
The
that.
violation is a class 3 misdemeanor.
Mhm.
And if that puts it into the category of criminal citation, then we would have to find somebody, a retired police officer, off-duty police officer or something like that,
Well,
to actually issue the citation.
There's a difference between the citation and the warrant.
my instructions don't differentiate between criminal or civil. It just says, will this officer be issuing citations?
Citation doesn't send you to court, district court, does it? I thought you had
So I would guess that he will be.
Mhm.
The citation is a summons to appear.
Okay.
But he can issue whatever you wanna call that initial,
Complaint?
complaint.
Yes,
And
absolutely,
start the clock running,
absolutely.
and so, because that Lanny Richmond from the municipal league sent us that opinion, that he can do that, and he can also do some, you can't, put a radar gun on speeders, but if he sees, people blocking the street doing construction, he can issue whatever you want to call it, a citation, a notice, according to Lanny Richmond.
Yeah, I'm thinking what this is gonna do is just gonna affect the rate for the workman's comp.
Mm.
Okay.
I suppose if he issues citations, that's a higher risk.
I,
Bet on it.
I thought the citation was just a warning, but it's not. That's the one that says appear in court.
The citation is a notice to appear in court.
Okay.
You can avoid appearing in court by paying a fine.
Well,
Okay,
he
but
can
maybe
do
the
warnings
situation-
before that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you know what?
Abatement is, my goal is the abatement of it. I don't, the fines and all that stuff, you know, the abatement to me, the fixing of what's wrong.
Right, and that's the first notice.
Right.
And I thought that was a citation, but okay, so.
No, that's a notice, and if they don't
Okay,
abide
call
by
it a
it,
notice.
then be laid out for given time, 14 days, 21 days, whatever it is. Then you go back and you write a citation, and if they're not there to take it, you stick it on the door. At that
And
point,
if they don't show up to court, the judge will issue a warrant, arrest warrant.
Is the first notice in writing, though?
yes,
Okay,
they get one chance.
okay.
You go to the door and you say, I'm here because this is incorrect based on our current codes. And we're gonna give you 14 days to fix this. If you can't fix
Is
it
that
in
what
14
state
days,
law requires?
do what?
Is that what state law requires?
I think state law says 10 days, but you know, I'm gonna tend more towards 14 days. Just to,
Depending on what, you might even go to 30, depending on what they're doing.
because you've got some that are gonna take 30 days just to, I mean, even if it's an everyday thing, it's gonna take 30 days to fix, so.
The trash, don't take 30 days to get signed up.
No, but that's two completely different
Yeah.
arenas.
Okay. I'm glad they cleared that up, because I was thinking citation was, hey, you got a problem.
No, citation says you had your chance, now we're going to
Get
court.
your handy down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are bound to be other cities of the second class, like we are, that have interlocal agreements with the county sheriff's office to provide their police department,
Well,
uh,
our
so
county-
that we could find out what they're doing.
It doesn't make any difference, our county ain't gonna do it, so.
Well, I'm saying if they were doing it in a different way in another county, maybe they have experience allowing their code enforcement officer to issue citations for misdemeanors.
Well, the problem is it's going to take.
Someone
years.
has to do
It's
it.
going to take years to corral this, because this has been going on for 40 years. It's not going to fix overnight.
50.
Well, either way, this has been going on so the actual, you know, getting everything back into some semblance of order is gonna take likely years.
Yeah, this has been the wild, wild west.
Yeah, it's gonna take years to resolve.
I was on the board from 2000 to 2009, and we wallered this stuff all over.
Well, I've seen a half a dozen different houses, homes, dwellings, whatever you wanna call them, that there is no way to fix them. They will have to be demolished. But we have to get to that point, because that's a severe abatement issue.
Anyway, well, thanks for.
Sorry to get off track there.
Thanks for your company.
Good.
Absolutely. I'm here for it.
All right,
First time I've said.
so we have some next steps to take here, and we'll just keep pecking away at it.
Yeah.
All right, should we move on to the budget?
Sounds good.
Where do you want to start? You want to start with the big spreadsheet, or?
I would start with the general fund summary tab.
Okay, that's what I got. And my first question is, we're starting with this, I'll call it a surplus for lack of better balance of 34,000, and we're gonna end up with a surplus of 9,000 or 9,500, is that accurate?
I don't have a closing fund.
Well, it says ending fund balance 95.
It's because we don't have a starting fund balance to plug in row 6 yet.
And I think that is the excess of revenue over expenditures
Yeah.
for the year.
Well,
If you look at the.
well, that's my question. Okay.
If you look at the budget column, the last column there.
Okay, well, that's good enough, Wes. We're showing that we're gonna have a surplus of $9,500. Okay.
Dan, I would suggest that in all of our budgeting, that it's not the zoning board of adjustment, it's the board of zoning adjustment. The title needs to be fixed.
Boza.
Both
Yes. So line 18, you need to change the title to board of zoning adjustment.
Where's line 18?
No, it's-
Oh, I don't have the line numbers here.
it's okay.
So I was gonna pull up over here so I could see it.
Okay. Correction made.
Okay. I believe there's a tab that would need the same change after.
Somebody called him wanting dedicated. Okay.
CAPEX is capital improvement, is that what?
Capital expenditure or something.
And the budget, 222 budget and the 22 forecast means you're adjusting what you think we're gonna end up with for the year. As opposed to what it is.
Say it again?
I say the forecast and the 2022 figures, budget forecast means, but what it says, the budget and the forecast is you're adjusting what you think we're gonna spend, right? Where's the income at?
On the summary page?
Revenue, so around the left.
B through D.
Under revenue,
Maybe
leftmost
just slide
columns.
We're calling B, that's like the cursor. You can make it really small and see it all without sliding.
Well, I don't need to, it's all showing up.
Good.
Other than that one column,
All right, you wanna go to the different departments then and actually look at each department? We can start out with the admin summary tab. The revenue forecast basically, as far as county tax, municipal aid, share of the county property tax, that was all, Wes gave you those numbers.
which one are we in? Admin summary. I know that summary, but I thought we were.
we're gonna budget a little bit of an increase in revenue from, last year, or from our current forecast. Most of that in, sales tax increase.
Yeah, the way they bump the appraisals, that might be larger than that.
Hope so.
County sales tax, the last 2 months, our receipts were 23,000.
Was that factored into the forecast?
It fluctuates a little the way it looks, between months. And we don't know if the economy changes, if there might be some decrease, but, at 23,000 a month, you would be talking about, what, 276?
Oh.
Yeah,
For this year's forecast, you're saying, for the 2022 forecast column?
Well, at what it currently is, right, has been the last 2 months.
If that continued out?
Yeah, it would continue that way, which it may not.
No, I think January, February, March, we'll find out are a little leaner from a sales tax standpoint.
Well, January would reflect December collections, so it'd be more like February and March, and April, maybe.
The vacation sales and activity is much lower.
Yeah.
I don't know, I tried to figure out the administrative IT during the different, I have a hard time. I guess it looked like there was some duplications in cloud service or something, I don't know, I couldn't figure it out. I think, not knowing what we're doing there. So.
Well, there is one misstatement on here that may be confusing you, Ken. Where it said the carbonite line.
We don't diminish.
It doesn't back up the NAS, that's to back up the individual devices.
Well, Dale recovery cloud service.
You're on the admin IT tab?
Yeah, that was what Ken was talking about, yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't deal with this one figure on the other one. Cloud managed security services, right?
The Datto.
Well, you got data recovery cloud service, and then you got.
Oh, the cloud managed security services, that's the Meraki. That's the Meraki software.
Which one?
Line 5 is Meraki. The $999.
There's the.
Yeah. That's for the software?
Yeah. The services associated with the Meraki device for computer activities.
Also, yeah, the cloud managed security services, that may be a duplication of the line above it, actually. I'm not positive. You know, they sent us a contract that we need to prove for either 3 years or 1 year. They sent us 2 versions. We could buy 1 year or we could buy it 3 years.
So the 1068 and the 999 might be the same.
Well, it's more like 1,800 to buy 3 years, but it's like twice. It's like to buy 3 years is only twice the annual cost, in other words. So, and I'd been talking to to Wes, he thought we had enough in the budget this year to go ahead and pay for 3 years, which we wouldn't have to pay that again in the subsequent years. But I don't know, we haven't approved it. The Meraki contract quote that we got, that we need to decide on,
So in 23, if we paid for 3 years, it'd be about $2,000.
a little under, yeah.
So 1068 and 999 is $2,000.
Mhm.
So the budget's there to pay for 3 years, even though it might be misstated here.
Oh, that's possibly
Okay,
true.
the dollars are there.
That could be true, yeah.
Okay.
Trying to think, now, is that gonna be billed by a computer?
Mhm. And it could be billed this year if we've got money to pay for it. And then you wouldn't have it in the next 3 years.
Seeing that on the bill.
Yeah, we have a quote for it. We don't have a bill. We just have a quote.
Your accounting software is also on cloud, Wes, or you backing it up yourself? Or is it in?
It runs in the
remote-
cloud.
is
It
a
runs in
remote
the cloud.
database, or is the database here?
No, it's not on any device that we have. It's in the cloud. So it's all cloud.
Okay, so that's the same thing as I got with the Perry.
So there's several things that are cloud in
Yeah, I
the
mean, we
word
got a
cloud
lot
in
of
it,
different
so.
clouds.
It's all cloudy.
Yeah, it is. Pretty cloudy all the time.
When I look at the grand total number
Looks like
of
we're,
what we're spending for IT
looks
support,
like we're eating.
for 3 or 4 computers, it seems like we're spending a lot of money.
Mhm.
I agree.
You know, I'm okay with putting all of that in the budget this year, just so that we're covered financially, but I also think that we may need a mini workshop just on that alone, you know, just on IT, you know,
Looks like to me that
for what we need.
looks to me like we're overprotected.
I mean, it is awfully handy for me to, I've called the help desk a couple of times when I come in the morning, and either because of the lightning storm or something, my computer had a brain fart.
Well,
And you call the help desk and they take over your computer and they fix it almost instantly, so it is nice, but is it worth all the money we're spending?
I got the same thing as Perry Center, I'm the IT, you guys understand the system there. And it pays like $120 a month. And the system is backed up, we don't have, you know, and it's like $120 a month.
He's local in Eureka?
Huh?
He's a local guy in Eureka?
Now he's someplace, I don't, it's off someplace, but every time you call them, they get right in there and help you, and, you know, you get automatic backups, and you don't gotta do nothing. We're paying a hell of a lot more than that.
Well, I will say, okay, in the numbers that I have, but what I've gone through and pulled out, separated out, for instance, the fees that we have for the planning commission, the code enforcement, and the building and construction, and its disaster recovery. And there's like $6,800 left in the general monthly fees that we pay for the computer, for monitoring, for the security and everything. $6,800. Okay, when I went through and I had sent out this spreadsheet summary, and they also send us an invoice, which we're not billed for, but they show the value of all of the specific services that we've gotten. And so far this year, it's been more than $10,000. That was through August, I think, for 8 months.
I agree with Dan, go ahead and put it in the budget, but I think we need to look at what we're doing.
You know, and plus they're monitoring our security, like they stopped an email apparently that came to mind, what, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, And it was generated in a system totally outside of anything they managed, but they spotted it. So. Because you do your email through Ionos, and it got generated in the Ionos system.
So that was our honest. That did that.
Well, it wasn't them that found it, Computer Hut found it. Or I called them about it when we got the notice from Ionos, that's what I did, and they helped us assure that we were gonna be safe.
Computer Hut would have found it, or did, and then you called Ionis.
No, vice versa. Ionis notified me as the administrator that there had been this bogus email sent out supposedly by you out of your email system in Ionis. And it went to 324 other addresses, and they spotted it as something that possibly was really bad. And so they trapped it, stopped it, their firewall stopped it from going out. And so I called our guy. They recommended we scan everything that Wes uses and make sure his devices are all clean and free of any virus and all that. And so that we could be assured that he was not, it wasn't coming from his machine doing something.
And they didn't find it.
And they didn't find anything, and he scanned clean, but you know, they knew what to do to make sure that we were safe.
So that's why recently some of his emails go to junk.
No, think, what emails are you talking
That's your
about?
account.
It's my account.
It's your email system handling that email that way.
It's not every email.
That's odd.
Is that reimbursement, is that, we talked about reimbursing you for travel and how expensive?
No, I didn't put anything in there. I don't think I put anything in there. For me, I put in, but I did put in want to go to the admin employee.
That's what I meant. How did you plan on using that 20 hours a week?
I don't know, preparing meals for me and stuff.
No, you couldn't even get me hooked up to the.
What item are we talking about?
He switched to admin employee.
Admin employee?
The third tab.
Oh, okay.
The
part-time assistant?
I just put a number in there.
I know, I would think the bulk of that is going to be, I see this person would start doing the minutes in. And they keep trying to keep all these, bank accounts straightened out.
That would be a big part of it probably. Simply being here to answer the phone, and when people knock on the door. I don't know that we need somebody 20 hours a week.
I was thinking more like 15, 3 days a week or something. But I mean, again, the figures that you put in there for the code enforcer in the building, those are just scientific, wild.
Yeah, there's practically no way of
I mean,
anticipating.
I guess you have, okay, I mean, so we're going into this to see how it works out. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's with the building inspector, you know, the number of hours is gonna be totally driven by the number of building permits we issue.
And I'm really impressed with him, the way he was down monitoring the rec center thing one day.
He definitely knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You know, the code enforcement, you know, that could easily be a full-time job next year. with all the backlog and the code enforcement, so it's what we wanna make of it. I think, halftime, while we're still cutting our teeth on how to do all of this, is probably, funny.
I think it's one of the more visible activities that we can do that makes people realize we are a city and we are going to act like one. I think a lot of people said it's bad name doing that.
But maybe more important to talk a little bit about what's not in here. I did not put anything in here for animal control.
Ooh.
Well, I think it takes 15, between 10, I think you could, from what I think if we lean heavily on Good Shepherd, I think we could almost talk them into actually doing the.
I think that's the least of the problem. Given the degree of problems that we're having with getting people to sign up for trash, if we pass an animal control ordinance that says that all dogs have to be registered, you have to have a dog tag and proof of rabies vaccination. If you think that the people in Holiday Island are going to flock to the city office to get their dog tags, it ain't gonna happen. The exact same people that let their vicious dogs run around and be a nuisance are going to be the last people that would ever consider buying dog tags for those dogs. So I guess I'm not ready to pass an ordinance that we can't enforce.
I would look at licensing. That's the control nuisance or vicious. But anyway.
We might be more likely to get compliance by offering people an opportunity to donate to a fund to help support animal control.
Possibly.
But anyway, I mean, I think the director of Good Shepherd was really very helpful and very interested in working with us, and I think it's an area that we could look at during next year rather than, to get firmly into because and this is, if the finances were there, we started on a limited basis. But he said they get quite a few animals now. People voluntarily bring them down there. Of course, that's, I'm sure that's primarily strays, not animals that belong to supposedly belong to somebody. But I think it's,
Well, I
that's
would
an
have
area we need to keep our finger on and look at.
in order to put it in the budget, the council would have to decide that passing an animal control ordinance is on the agenda for next year.
I think we could.
I don't know if the council is ready to do that or not.
I think it could be an action item for next year to get it in place and maybe get it started and, get the ordinance and everything, get the process actually implemented in 24. I don't know. From what I got talking to those people, and I talked to the, the animal control officer from Eureka, and again, they're doing it, on a fairly small budget also. The only difference is they have their own kennels, and the shepherd said they would do the kenneling for us, which is the biggest manpower requirement, I think. And if we could find somebody that would do the pickups on the contractual basis, I think it would be very, again, I think we could start it for around 15,000.
I'm also in favor of starting something on a very small basis. And I liked what you brought to the council for our consideration. I thought that was well thought out.
I think if you push the shepherd, I think they would actually, we could contract for them to do the pickups.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah, you're kind of on step 2. Step 1 is writing an animal control ordinance.
Well,
I think that's the easiest part myself.
Put together a plan of how we're going to implement it and enforce it.
well, let's say we could, we could put that on, as an action item for next year, and if we get it done, I think, we have enough money, we could, start it on a limited basis, to deal with the more pressing issues in that area. Most of what I see is, is strays. I'm sure, I think we have a problem with people dumping when you're,
We definitely do in certain parts of the island, but the calls that I get are not from strays. It's not people complaining about stray dogs. It's people complaining about dogs with owners, and the owners let them run loose, and they're a nuisance. But we, like I said, it all starts with animal control orders.
we're not, I would say we're probably 6 months away from that being able to actually get that to where you could start it anyway.
Right. So, public comment?
Sure.
Ken Brown, 7 Cypress Point. My dog and I were bitten about 7 years ago, and several of you were on a committee, on the Board of Commissioners at the time, and I went home shaken and called 911, and the sheriff's dispatcher said, well, Mr. Brown, we can't come and help you because you're not a city and you don't have a dog leash law. You don't have an ordinance or anything. So, and that happened up the 7th key box up by my home, and the same dog attacked about 4 people, including one guest who was cheating off and got him from behind. So one of the exciting things about becoming a city, why I voted, was that was one of them. That it might be a while before we get started with that, but I like the idea of at least planning to start it, and it may take 2 or 3 years, but as we grow, and just about everybody has a dog or a cat, and they move in here, and if we have no way of watching for or protecting from unleashed animals, it's sad. It's and a couple of people were old ladies, old women, sorry, older people, and the liabilities are, I think, liabilities are just common sense that if we're a city, that would be one thing that I would like to see. And then I've had a couple other things that I won't back up again. As far as cleanup and Carroll County waste, there's going to be a cleanup of the roads on October 14th, Friday. So we're hoping to get more people out for that. As we get older and older, there's less people showing up, but we want to keep the roads clean, 187, 23, and so forth. And it's going to be a picnic afterward on the burgers for everybody, so we want to do that. The other thing is, I can't stay for your whole budget meeting, but I said the other day in our meeting that I would like to see as much of your funds as possible that you get from your resources, to help Holiday Island District, SID, continue as long as possible. And I made a comment, I think Ken was here during the meeting, that if we keep the assessment as high as it is right now, then that's less time. And Glenn, you were there, and others on the committee, from the city. We have to look at our budget for the Board of Commissioners, and if you're getting, say, 500,000 from turnback funds and property tax funds and so forth, the items that I've heard so far today on your bullet points have not been, would not help our budget at all, and for us to lower our assessment. I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but anything that you could do and whether it's the police department, deputy, or fire, you're doing a good job on that, but I'm just encouraging as much as you can do as possible so we can make this place last as long as possible. Appreciate it, thank you.
I think we can well have animal control as an action item, get started on it next year. Whether we could actually implement it might be a stretch, but I think it could be done.
I think I heard Ken volunteer to draft the animal control ordinance.
What do they say? Shoot them. Oh, I'm an animal lover.
It definitely needs to be done at some point in the future, but
I think it's probably one of the other issues that I spent more wasted time on than I'd like to admit on the BOC. And we're not able to accomplish anything. And and a lot of these, the issues that we're talking about here, the nuisance and the trash and everything, those are all items that the BOC spent a lot of wasted time on and accomplished little or nothing. And we are in a position that we can do something about it, and hopefully shortly we'll see some fruit of our labor. And the issue on, I don't know, I get, you probably don't want me to keep going with it. But as far as reducing the assessment, there's going to have to be some function switching, and we would have to implement, to do anything, we're going to have to implement, a property, that 5 mil property tax, which would bring in $250,000 to $300,000. That's the only way we could make any significant impact, and I won't vote for it unless there's going to be an offset in the assessment.
Thank you.
yeah, I agree that the only way that the city can, at this point, have a substantial impact on the HICID budget beyond the 50,000 we're putting in the fire department,
Well,
is for the city to pass a tax millage to take over some function that the district is currently doing. And, we could start discussing things like that next year.
I think we need to. We need to start talking
and we need,
that, if we're gonna get it done in 10 years or in the near future.
From the time we decide to do something, it's a 2-year process, because, whatever we plan to do, we would have to pass an ordinance next October. I mean, we could do it this year in anticipation of doing something, but we don't have a plan. But by the October, November timeframe, we need to pass an ordinance establishing the tax millage for next year to notify the county. And the county puts it into their budget to collect the tax, but they don't collect that tax until October of the following year. So it's a 2-year process before we see any money from a decision that we would make early next year. So, but I agree that, you know, we need to be having those discussions. But it's too late this year to put together any kind of a plan to impose a tax millage.
I would say, I have been thinking about the finances and how everything works, and I know there's this talk of wanting to eliminate the district and the city taking everything over. And I don't think I agree with that. I don't think it's a good idea. I agree with Kim. Keep in mind, we've got people who live somewhere else, who own a house here, to come and just visit, you know, on vacation. We're getting no turnback revenue from those. We're getting no turnback revenue from the vacation rentals because there's no residents there. If you take a $200,000 house, if we have a 5 mil property tax, which is the limit, that's $200 a year in tax revenue. 200. Well, it would, you take 200,000 times 20% times the 5 mils,
40.
it comes, you know, it comes out to essentially 1 mil.
Yeah.
Which is $200 versus assessment right now of what, 700?
780.
Or 780 that they're paying for public services that are provided, fire protection,
Well,
police protection, and so on. And if the district goes away, you've got $200.
well, there's no way given the current, but we could take over a function
Right.
and fund it probably. There has to be some agreement what we're gonna do before, like I say, before I vote for implementing some property tax.
We have started in, right after the first of the year in the spring, because our first budget meeting is next Monday, and your first budget meeting today. So if we're looking at October of 2023, we've got to start the first quarter, at least the first half of the year, to even make it happen.
Right. Because we'd have to send a notice to the county to levy it in October 23, and it would start trickle, you know, elections in 2024 with the big one come in October. So, it's a couple, Dan says, 2-year process. And it would be nice to have been there already, but we're not. And I think, well, we haven't looked at the road budget yet, but I think it's like 200 and 250 every year. Basically that, you know, all that goes to with 300,000 grant they'll give us. And like this year we got 600,000 in work, but they say every other year, so we may actually get to where we have a little bit extra in there, but not yet. The first year, 300,000 was kind of wiped that amount.
Well, let's try to,
Okay.
finish up this, you know, under public safety, there's one item that, bears some discussion. I put in $15,300. We have 204 fire hydrants in Holiday Island.
Which one is that? Public
Under
safety
the
last
public
time.
safety cap. We have 204 hydrants in Holiday Island, and most of them, if not all of them, need a coat of paint, and they need to have the weeds trimmed around them. And, you know, I don't, you know, I didn't really ask Danny if HICID was gonna budget for something like that. I just thought that it would be something that we could contribute towards, the community that, wouldn't have to then come out of HICID's budget. The $150 per hydrant, and that's just a number, that's just a number. I have no idea what somebody would charge us to sandblast them, paint them, and, you know, weed eat the grass around them, and then spray it with some kind of weed killer so that the grass doesn't immediately grow back up around the hydrants. So $15,000 a year for 2 years, we can have all the hydrants repainted, sandblasted, and repainted and cleared out.
I was talking to someone when this subject came up about painting the hydrants. Seems like maybe it came up on social media that the hydrants needed to be painted or something. And, or many were in bad shape and you couldn't see the colors and what have you. I know the caps have to be a certain color to distinguish between the pressure, but someone mentioned, and I thought it was a cool idea, have a contest about, and let individual people adopt hydrants and paint them in interesting colors or you know, paint them very creatively, except for the cap, which would have to be a certain color. But it sounded like a really fun idea, and you could maybe raise money that way.
Yeah.
National Fire Code 5.2.1.1, all barrels to be chrome yellow except in cases where another color has already been adopted.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Forget that then.
I think when you drive through these towns and they have that creative color scheme, I think that's a bad idea.
The last time they were painted, some group
Mission group from Texas or
came
something.
through here and did it. And like a lot of other things, unless somebody pushes them and kicks them, the district tries to ignore them. I'm sorry, but Ken, that is true.
I don't remember, they were, I don't think they were sandblasted that year either.
I think they probably used a wire brush on them.
Maybe they did that.
Yeah.
But I can't support that. I think that's the district's responsibility, not ours. We're giving them $50,000 to the fire department support. I'm not in favor of taking on their maintenance.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
One thing, Rotary Club wants to do in virtual fundraiser this fall. The last one we did, we raised $15,000. And that could be a possibility.
That's a great idea, Jerry.
We already have a Rotary commitment to spend money on signage, and unfortunately, that project somehow ended up being under my control, and I haven't had any time to work on it. Peggy Bodowitz did go, Peggy and Don went all over Holiday Island and took pictures of all the signs. So I have a file of probably 1,000 pictures. Because they not only did the informational signs, but they took pictures of the street signs and the yield signs and
They're all
everything. that anything that looked shabby, they took a picture of. And, there's a huge need to take care of that too, but it's just one of those low priority things that when you sit down and you do the budget, you cover the things that have to be done first, and then if there's any money left over, you start to look at things that should be done, and of course, there's never any money for the things that should be done after you're done looking at the things that have to be done. But so
We've got enough money in the street fund, I think.
Oh, street fund could fund signs, yeah.
We could replace this, do the signs that are on our roads.
yeah, those
And it would be a lot easier for the Rotary Club to raise the money with fire hydrants than it would be with the place signs. Then we've got, I think we're going to do $3,000 on signs.
I just don't want us to.
It would be, I stuck it in there because it seemed like a good idea at the time, but,
Well, given that you got a budget here that only allows us a $9,000 cushion,
Mhm.
I can't support this.
I can take it back out again.
You know we're gonna have items that show up during the year.
It was a little bit of a stretch in the first place because I'm not sure that for the city to spend money on it, we would have to convince ourselves and the public and the auditors that the fire hydrants are part of the fire department and not part of the sewer and water.
Interesting.
And that could be a little bit of a stretch right from the get-go. So I'm not opposed to taking it out and keeping that money in reserve for possibly coming up with a animal control program for next year.
I would think we could start working on it, and if the funds were there, we could do it, otherwise we postpone it. But, and that is one of the issues that we need to put some priority on, is looking through stuff and see if we can find any other revenue source.
Well, speaking of revenue sources, just on what Jerry was saying, Rotary has funds to give toward community projects. Elks probably gives funds to community projects. Even Hi-Ha always gives funds to community projects, and possibly Art Guild and some of those others might be able to chip in too. If you went around and did a coordinated effort and said, these are some needs that the city sees that need to be done to keep our place beautiful, and start a fund that every one of them could give to if they wanted to, they would all feel like it was a part in a community project.
And if we did the fire hydrants, it didn't matter.
I'm sure everyone would get behind that. Right.
Okay, I'll take it out of the city budget.
Otherwise, I congratulate you on a very well thought out budget.
Well, thank you very much.
This required a lot of work to put together too.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is really, and it's and the budget is a guide. It's not absolute.
Dan, I had a question on the district court tab.
Okay.
You said the assumption is the county will prosecute the traffic and keep the funds. Does the city have to make something official to give them jurisdiction inside our city limits? Enable them to do that?
No, they can enforce traffic and criminal law anywhere in the county.
Okay.
They could go into Eureka Springs and write a traffic ticket and we're done that. Now, as far as, it is my assumption in this budget that the county would prosecute because it comes down to who's gonna prosecute
Exactly.
the
The citation.
The assumption in this budget is that traffic and criminal would be prosecuted by the county and they would keep the revenue. Any fines and fees for code enforcement, ordinance enforcement, the city would prosecute and keep any revenue, of which there would be minimal benefit. Everybody else takes their cut.
Sure.
There's very little left over. But that does bring up a point that I was gonna mention. And I'm hoping that it would end up being budget neutral, but, we are going to have to, we're gonna have to pass an ordinance, allowing the city to, appoint a prosecuting attorney. Because, Tim Weaver died in Eureka Springs, and their new city attorney, wasn't interested in, prosecuting cases. They passed 2 ordinances this year. One defining the role of the city attorney, and one establishing and defining the role of the prosecuting attorney. So I was going to download those ordinances and sometime between now and the end of the year, our city council is gonna have to pass similar ordinances that authorizes us to, when we set up the district court agreement, authorizes us at the same time to contract with Eureka Springs' prosecuting attorney, to also prosecute our cases. Once we've identified and secured a prosecuting attorney, then I think we can have discussions with the county as to whether or not we're gonna prosecute our own traffic violations, even if the deputy writes the ticket. If we prosecute them all, then we keep the revenue from that. We're talking about peanuts, so it's more of a procedural thing than it is a revenue thing. But it would be less confusing, I think, maybe even to the district court judge as to, how the summonses are processed and everything. I have to give I have to avail myself of a little bit of civics class here in the next month or so as to how that whole process works. When somebody, whether it be the code enforcement officer or the deputy, when they write a ticket or create a citation, how does that turn into a summons to appear in court? How do they know what date they're supposed to appear? Who does the notification? Who lets the circuit court clerk know that they have to get this particular citation on the docket and stuff like that? There's got to be a process for that. And
I think you probably could find that out from those ladies down there at the district court. Or actually call Judge Ramsey. I think he's been more than helpful.
Yeah.
I ran into him today. I went over and talked to the sheriff. He seems very, very, very interested in getting helping this get started. So.
I assume that when somebody writes a citation, it's a 2 or 3 part form. The first form goes to the offender, second form goes to the district court clerk, and the third copy stays with the city. So, but I'm big on flow charts, so I want to get this all flow charted.
We're not talking about.
Have they ever written many tickets on holiday hours, streets and all?
he writes about
I have a month.
5 a month, yeah. Not last month, but the month before last, that went up quite a bit. I think he actually wrote, I don't know, 11 or 12 or so actual tickets. But typically, he makes about 17 to 20 stops and writes about 5 tickets. And it generally depends on whether or not they get a ticket. Depends on how flagrant the violation was and how, what the attitude is of the driver. So,
I think I got stopped 3 times, and the last one time finally got a warning.
yeah. I've gotten a warning once, it was quite a while ago. It was before I was married.
That jerked me in my senses. I've been pretty careful since then. I didn't say that a warning.
Has anybody noticed anybody slowing down with the signs up on 187?
Yeah, I think they are.
Yeah,
You really think so?
I think the people coming from the north are,
Coming from Missouri down.
yeah.
The ones come over,
Yeah, second, let's
I think they come over the hill or go
The
over the
ones coming in from Eureka.
Not all of them, but I do see.
I don't think Aaron's taken any action to force it. I think it got them to slow down. And I just remember spending a lot of time trying to get state to do that back when I was on the DOC, and they wouldn't do it.
Well, Aaron doesn't spend a lot of time on traffic enforcement, and when you look at what he does spend time on, I have to agree with him that he's spending his time on the things that
Hopefully,
need more priority.
hopefully when we get this contract through and get the second person on board, there's a little more traffic control.
I would like to put speed tables down on how they have a drive, just to see what effect that has.
That would slow them down.
But
Especially if they're 9 inches
I
tall.
think the people that drive the emergency vehicles would have an issue with that.
Yeah.
Anything else on the budget that anybody questions or anything we think we should add?
Just one thing, is maybe a question, but, put in what I thought was kind of a low number for business licenses. So what's your thought there? I mean, I know we don't have any idea how many businesses.
Which page is that on?
It's right in front of admin summary.
That's another thing that's got to start
1,
with
2, 3, 4,
the ordinance.
fourth tab, business license.
Oh, there.
I
His
think
comment is
that
$5,000.
when we look at
Right.
regulating VRBOs, which is kind of where the whole thing starts.
Yeah.
And you have to work backwards through that, and, issuing or having a process for issuing business licenses is, going to be, I think, a necessary element, being able to regulate VRBOs. So, but beyond that, I haven't given it any thought at all yet. So here again, somebody's gonna have to do some legwork to come up with an ordinance. But, and then, it has to be an ordinance that we
Yeah, a lot of
think is enforceable.
Yeah, will have to be how we determine who needs one. Because if someone's using a private home, a residential area, some of the other cities have declared those businesses, and they pay a business license. And depends on how you charge that, whether it's so much for occupancy or whatever. So I mean, that number could be, lower or higher. And then if we allow variances to operate with the RVO, there there would be, I think we've got some fee structures in our, to get that variance, that would be income, I'm gonna put up that line there.
Yeah. Well, it all starts again with an ordinance, and, I guess personally, I'd rather see that come before animal control, because I just think that animal control ordinance is going to be so difficult to enforce.
Well, yeah, if you put a leash law in,
And I can't imagine enforcing the leash law,
I'm not in favor of leash law.
I don't know that you have to have a leash law to have an animal ordinance, though.
No, you don't.
Probably
No,
not.
you don't.
And, but somehow you have to be able to,
How do you, you know, but it, I mean, I don't know how you determine whether, you know, you go based on, you know, I think.
If you find an animal and they're not under the control of their owner,
Yeah,
then
but you have
it's,
to have a leash law to make it.
but it doesn't require a leash, is what I'm saying.
Leash law means it's under your control.
Okay, I think it should be under their control.
You don't have to have an animal on the leash, so, I mean, it just
Right.
means you have to have it.
If it's running stray and the owner is nowhere in sight, it's not under the owner's control.
So, I think you would be dealing mostly with strays and vicious animals.
Yeah. And, you know, going back to funding, I see no harm in requiring licensing of animals. In fact, you know, as an owner of an animal myself, I would be perfectly happy to pay a license fee for my animal that helped fund animal control. Because I have a small dog and I don't want a big dog coming in that doesn't have an owner in sight that I'm scared of when I'm walking my dog.
Well, I think at some point, we need to have a planning meeting, you know, I guess, November, December, planning what we're gonna try and do next year, or do we need to do it before the.
I don't know. If
How
you
you have goals or whatever you want.
First of all, we have to get reelected.
Yeah. that's-
Only Pat has to get reelected.
It's kind of, in one,
I think the mayor elect needs to take that up.
it's kind of nice, but in the other, it shows that there's nobody out there wanting to step up.
First step is getting it in the budget.
And we have to have the budget to, out by when?
Well,
Into January, I think.
February.
I think.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you.
I think it's technically the end of January, but in practical terms, if we want to spend money in January, we have to have an approved budget.
Yeah.
So we're gonna approve our budget in November and December.
Well, then, submit that. Wes, have you ever heard anything from the audit committee?
I, a fellow from internal audit called last spring, and I visited with him. And he thought that probably when they came, they would probably do a 2-year audit, since we were just getting started last year, and that may be kind of an annual.
I thought it was supposed to be an annual, that's.
Well, right, but they would audit 2 years, so he's talking that they probably, you know, next year, maybe do 21 and 22.
Do we pay for that?
No.
It's included in our
It's free.
Arkansas Muni League stuff?
No,
We could hire an independent CPA. if
Oh, I
we
meant
wanted
to get the
But then we would have to. pay.
legislative audit.
but this,
Legislative audit is not charged.
Okay.
I see no reason to pay for an auditor.
If there are a little bit of money.
No.
I had a question, Dan, about the building inspector and the code enforcer. You have the code enforcer factored in with running 20 hours a week, but the building inspector is only doing 15 hours a week? Is that what we're expecting to happen? Was that contractual?
How many hours a week is he putting in now?
Oh, hey,
His last time sheet was 10.
It was more this past week, and I saw it, but I can't tell you exactly how much it was. He had like 2.5 hours, controlling traffic up there for the cement truck. So it's probably 12 or 15.
Are you talking Aaron now?
No, Aaron is.
Oh, the building inspector was controlling traffic? Okay.
that's, hey,
Aaron
we
is
didn't talk
there
about
full time.
that, we didn't talk about the.
It's very,
road-
I'm
we didn't
talking
talk about the
ongoing
road
though.
budget.
Yeah, the only thing in the road budget is the annual maintenance to see for the district. Because next year, we're still in our saving our money mode for a big project in 2024.
Well, I see that the amount that we're projecting is going to be quite a bit higher than what we anticipated. I mean, I think,
As far as revenue,
yeah, 286, that's nice, and you're going to submit the grant in November,
we'll
December.
resubmit the same one I did
But
last
in
year.
all probability, they're not gonna let us do it in 2023, they're gonna make us wait till 2024.
Right, yeah, we would be, hopefully, we'll be awarded the grant in 2023, which means by the end of the year, by September, October, the highway department would be, RDOT would be going out for, well, they wouldn't go out for bids yet until, yeah, they could.
Well, this year,
In October, November, they'd be going out for bids already, and then, schedule the work in January.
but looking at this projection, we're gonna, if we're only gonna be able to do those grants every other year, we're gonna have some road fund money that would be available for us to do things outside.
It all depends on how much we want, how big a project we want to be able to do when we do a project.
So we wanna get close, we know we wanna aim for 550. And then if it goes over,
Yeah.
because we wanna, I mean, that's the best bang for a buck we can get. And I mean, the way they handle that contract is just so good. I mean.
Quality of work was better than we've ever seen too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best road project Holiday Island's seen in a long time,
Mhm.
if ever.
I guess we could do more if we wanted to pay 100%.
I don't think, I thought
The biggest project they'll manage was
550.
supposed to be 500, and then they upped it to 550 to, well, actually, they upped it to 600,000.
Well, I know, but the original project that they okayed was 550. And then the bid came in at 6, so I thought, if we could request up to 550 with us putting in 250. So all we need is 250,000, and the road fund's generating more than that every year. So, I mean, we could start with things like replacing the signs and stuff on our section of the roads.
Yep.
And
Probably gonna generate about 300,000.
that would be great, because we started off with quite a bit less than that. And, I don't know, very close to reaching the end of our ability, our fundability, you know, funds that we're gonna have and the services that we're gonna offer. We're pretty close to the edge. So we're gonna have to figure out something. This one, yeah, but we're not there yet. But I just, I'm just happy we've gone as far as we have, and I think the budget that you laid out is gonna allow us to, I keep trying to think of something that we could do that would make a bigger footprint for the city, but simply, you know,
The vast majority of the people that call me are happy with what we're doing as far as information. I don't think we need to make any big splashes yet.
well, you don't want to get a grant for a new city hall?
Well, if we got a grant for it, I thought.
They would go for that?
They would probably go for it, but,
One minor thing that I found on the code enforcement budget
yeah,
is, you still have the old, mileage amount for IRS on the vehicle or vehicle reimbursement, I guess. It's 62 and a half. You had it on building inspector, but you didn't put it on the code enforcement.
I'll correct that.
What was that?
I have the old IRS mileage rate for mileage reimbursement of 57.
That was one of the items in that email that I sent to you.
Yeah.
You've got the correct dollar amount, it's just the incorrect mileage rate.
Yeah, the dollars are right.
Oh,
The
okay.
description's wrong.
Okay. I didn't bother to add it up.
It is calculated
The
65
answer,
days.
the answer is right, it's just the figures are wrong.
The notice,
And gas has gone down, so it may not be 62.5 cents
Yeah.
next year.
Again.
Also, on the code enforcement, I had a question about $2,500 for printing. Seems like everything he needs printed could be printed on the printers in the office.
Now, when I did this, I had no idea where all of our forms and stuff were gonna come from. Because, you know, we have to have, you know, like a multi-form, multi-copy, serialized
Oh, yeah.
forms for everything. And, you know, unless he can come up with something with blanks that we can run through a print machine that you can do on a template on.
Well, you might have to send that to Wicker or something.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to buy those forms.
or from UPS or somebody.
I just really.
Yeah.
These,
Whoever's cheap.
these, we're to the point of starting to talk about re-inspection fees for some of these jobs.
I don't see.
These, the builders are learning some things.
Well, I mean.
And it's not that any of our builders were doing shoddy work. It's just that, there's things that should be done a little bit better or should be done a little bit different.
Well, that's the reason I ended up at Holiday Island is because I looked at houses on Beaver Lake for 2 or 3 years. And I ran into so much crappy building.
Well, the things that seem to, the one thing that seems to be not very well understood by the local builders here is the Arkansas Energy Code, which we reference in our building code. And there are very specific things that you know, like, you know, ratings on windows and stuff like that, and,
Well, I just, you know, that's,
if a window is within a certain number of feet of the door, then it has to be shatterproof glass and things like that, you know, things that a lot of our, that I didn't know, a lot of our builders didn't know. Footings and foundations have to be insulated as part of the energy code. I didn't know that. You know, you have to have a styrofoam, you know, actual insulation between the dirt and the footings or the foundation wall. And so, yes, he is a big asset, not just to the city, but to the builders.
Another question I had on the building inspector and code enforcement was you have a line item for telephone and internet. Are we splitting that apart from the IT budget or the admin budget?
You know, Wes and I at least have been, and maybe even Wayne too, have been talking about, instead of just having all of that in the admin bucket, to try to do as much for the activity-based accounting, I think is the term they use, where you try to assign as much cost to the actual activity that's consuming it as you possibly can.
I like that.
Wes, what I told Wes was, I'm gonna do the budget on my spreadsheet like this, and then give it to him, and he can put it in the correct budgets or buckets for, as far as allocating costs and stuff like that. And
Okay.
when we have our next budget meeting, I would hope to be able to have it in the format of the software that we're using for our financial statements. To get it off the spreadsheet and into the actual software.
And, you know, to carry that to the degree that it was implemented in industry, the fact that we're paying rent for this building, part of it should go to the planning commission, because they use it for planning commission meetings.
Yeah. There's,
They,
at some point,
So you know what it costs.
yeah, at some point, you know, you might be, you know, dividing up pennies, but if it's a substantial expense. And it's important when you, like, it's very important in industry, because if you're talking about divesting of some particular activity, you have to know what fixed costs are and what variable costs are, and, you know, if you eliminate this activity, is all of that cost really gonna go away? Or is most of that fixed? So,
So in the product line we did, we had stuff that went through the standard line, and those costs were much lower than the stuff that was in the custom line.
Yeah.
Because of the price of the equipment and the operating costs, so the price is different.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do it, at least in the planning commission realm, so that we know what we should be charging for permits, what it costs us for people to come, so that it's a net neutral when we're done. We bring a revenue in that offsets our costs.
now Les and I'll work on doing that allocation and coming up with the probably need to write some rules about how we're allocating things so that.
Your successors know
Yeah,
the formulas.
so then it will
oh, your
always
successor?
Well, the main ones I've looked at so far is like the computer hut and phones and that sort of thing, because that's all set out on their bill, what we're paying for, so. And your monthly financial statements, I've been dividing that.
Okay.
I end for the first month or two, and then after I got Linda's explanation of what everything was, and I went back and looked, I've gone back and reclassified some things.
Cool.
Have you worked out anything where you want to put this first?
No,
they might not need a desktop PC if you had them use the one that's in there, the old one.
Yeah.
If we got it doctored up with actual software on it.
maybe the clerk can have this computer and I can take that old one.
Well, yeah, you could do that.
I mean, all I use is Excel and Word, and,
Or we're gonna have to get Excel and Word on that machine then, because it has nothing on it.
Yeah. It doesn't have Excel on it?
I couldn't believe it when I went to look at it the other day. I figured, I
Put
thought for
open office
sure.
on it.
Which one's that?
Open, well, maybe it did have Open Office. Maybe it did have Open
Yeah, it must
Office.
have, because they were doing,
It didn't have an Excel or Word license, so.
Probably do the open office.
Well, I'd have to look, I mean, we've got 365. I'd have to look and see how many machines we're paying for.
Well, for $6, we could put 365 on there a month, you know,
I mean,
six a
we're
month.
paying, you know, a per machine charge
Mhm.
for 365, which would include all of those.
For $8, you could get the more full apps, and for $6, you could get the
Right, that's right.
cut down apps.
$6 for like David and Aaron.
Mhm.
I think it's $8.50 for
I
3.
think so. Yeah.
Which would be Dan, myself,
Should only be 2.
the third one would be. Planning Commission?
I
Well,
don't have any software.
I don't think it's on that desktop that came from the Planning Commission that we have in the office.
I'm pretty sure there's three machines being charged.
We need to check that then. Make sure.
Aaron's or David's, one or the other.
They have the
Aaron's
business
and
apps,
David's are
or,
6.
no, they have just
Because they're
365.
not getting-
You two have the business apps, 365 business apps, which is the higher price.
Interesting, I went to the OC meeting. Linda was
I
there.
watched it
Yeah.
live.
Huh?
I watched it live.
Well, let's, before we get on to anything else, are we
We're done.
done with the discussion?
I think that's about all I had. If I find something else, I'll call you, or email you.
Do we need a motion to adjourn the workshop, or should I just adjourn?
Good game.
All right, the workshop is over.
Okay,
Shut off the-
turn everything off. Hang on.